This project is all about taking leftover pieces and turning them into a magnificent wedding gift. In the end, I'll still have 3 pieces left over to make even more bowls.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. Doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen, I have something to say.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning, for Grandpa Dennis is turning.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Dennis Pravensky, and welcome to Grandpa Dennis's wood turning studio. Today, I'm going to try and make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. In other words, all of these scraps that you see on the table, I'm going to fit them nicely and solidly into this pail, fill it with resin, let it harden, then put it on the lathe and make some beautiful silk looking bowls out of them. So stay tuned and see how I do that. Boy, I wish I could move this fast in real time. All these pieces were a mixture of burls from birch and burls from Manitoba maple. I had to sand down because some of them had a sealant on them, and I had to take the bark off of all the pieces. That took a lot of chiseling. But now I've got a pail full, and we'll see how much resin is needed to fill it up. I ended up using just under 3 liters of resin. The Mecca powder I used was from Eye Candy. It's a green. Turned out gorgeous. I've got this out of the pressure pot, and you'll notice that all of these pieces, small pieces of burl, floated to the top, and the resin sunk further in. The problem I have here is I never put a lid on this of maybe thin plywood with some weight on it to keep these pieces down into the resin. I'll take a chainsaw and cut this down so that it's to the level of the resin. This fella weighs 18 pounds. That's pretty heavy. I'm glad I don't have additional 18 pounds on me. It measures 10¼ inches in diameter and 6½ inches in height. The plan is to core out 2 additional bowls from the inside of this. Because of the great weight, I'm going to have to put a steady rest on here to make sure that it stays on the lathe. I have to now make a decision, which is the top and which is the bottom. Because these pieces floated, I think there's a fair amount of resin down at the bottom. It would be nice to have resin on the lip of each of the 3 bowls. In that case, this would be the bottom and that the top. However, because of all this pattern on the top, resin, wood, resin, wood, resin, wood, it might also be nice to have that as the lip all the way around on each of the 3 bowls. So I'm kind of thinking this would be the top and the resin part the bottom. My first task is to find the centers, and it's going to be roughly here. And on the other side, find the center, put it between centers on the lathe, and true it up as best I can. I certainly need this flattened out nicely to be able to put a glue block on here. This is where the headstock will be. I'm going to cut a star in here. And that'll allow these prongs to sit in there better. Now with pressure on there, that'll stay put. I had it between centers on the lathe and trued up the side that's going to be the top of the bowls. Now I've reversed it and I'm truing up the bottom of the bowl. This is important so that the glue block can fit on nicely and have a good, solid, and smooth fit for the glue to set. The marks I made on the bottom of the piece are to allow me to center my glue block properly on the bottom. Now I'm truing up the edges of the block, and that's so that my steady rest can run smoothly and accurately to maintain the pressure on the block as I'm coring out the pieces. You'll note that the tailstock is in place to give added support to the piece as I true up the top of the block. For some reason, the lathe seems to be working in reverse. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but in the end it worked out. The glue block had been attached with 1 hour epoxy and put onto a faceplate. I left it overnight to fully cure. When I get down to the center of the piece, there's only a small nub remaining. I pull the tailstock away and pare off that small nub using a handsaw. Let me start off with the 11.5-inch cutter. That cutter is 1 inch away from the face. This is the 1 inch area from the center of the post to the face. The cutter, now you position this forward and back till you get it right in the center of your kerf. Lock this down, do your turning. That's the outside. Now for the other ones, this is the 9-inch cutter. Half of that is 4.5. 1.5 inches away, the center of this post is 1.5 inches away from the face. For the smallest bowl, it's the 2.25 inch from the center to the face, and this has to be angled There we go. Now, none of the instructions that I see on YouTube tell you to angle the base. They're always at a right angle. So, We'll turn this piece and see how it works out. With these measurements, I end up with a center bowl of 3.5 inches. The next bowl, that's the center bowl. The next bowl ends up being 3/4 of an inch thick. The next bowl ends up being just over 1/2 inch thick. And the last bowl, the rim, is 1/2 inch, but there's more mass at the end here. Now that the piece is completely cored out, I start working on the outside shape. I'm using a carbide tipped tool because of the strong resin that's very difficult to turn with high-speed steel. I also had the tailstock in for added support. Once the final shape has been determined, I start the sanding process. In this case, I went from 40 grit all the way to 1500. You'll note all of the sandpaper discs I have. They're attached to the lathe bed. With the sanding complete, I part off the piece from the glue block and then reverse it on the lathe. It's being held on partially by a vacuum chuck that's in the opening of the bowl. The tailstock is brought up for some added support. Now I'm truing up the bottom of the piece. When I true up the bottom, I always do a bit of a concave finish on the bottom so that the bowl will rest only on the outside rim of the foot. The final small nub in the center of the foot is removed without the tailstock in place. There's enough pressure from the vacuum chuck so that it holds the piece in place as I remove that nub with a small handsaw. The bottom is then sanded and the whole piece has a coat of finish on it. This bowl is absolutely stunning, verging on magnificent. It's 10 inches in diameter and 5.5 deep. Now I've got something to say. There's always a balance people have to make between perfection and getting the job done on time. It's seldom that I can do perfection and have it done quickly. This balance is true in a lot of parts. I made a set of coffee tables years ago. Decided to save some money by using ash that I had in the shop. It wasn't quality ash, but I already had it. It took 2 weeks to mill the lumber and to cut out all the knots and imperfections. When I completed the project 1 month later, I determined that I could have gone to the lumber store and bought clear ash or clear oak to make the project. However, I did end up saving $75, but spent 2 weeks doing that. Where's the trade-off? What should have I done? That's something everyone has to determine. I could have made this bowl out of one solid piece of burl. However, I had scraps of burl left over. In this case, using the leftovers ended up giving me, I think, a nicer bowl than using one piece. There's a balance. Everyone has to determine what it is. This piece is already spoken for. It's going to be a wedding gift. Here are the 3 cores that I got out of this one blank. This is going to be a nice small bowl. This one would be a nice small bowl as well, a little bit larger, and then a medium-sized bowl. My next video will show how I take these 3 cores and make them into a nice nesting set. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed the project. Please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell when you do that so that you can get a notification of my next videos. Any comments on my videos will be greatly appreciated, and the subscriptions will help me to grow my channel. Until next time, this is Grandpa Dennis saying have a good week.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. Doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen, I have something to say.
Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning, for Grandpa Dennis is turning.